In the 19th century, China was still in the feudal Qing dynasty. The clothing of the Qing dynasty has the most complex system and rules in the history of Chinese clothing. All men at the time had to shave their crowns, keep long braids, and wear different styles of clothing according to their ethnic and official position. Women had to bind their feet, wear traditional long coats, and have long hair in complex shapes according to their age. The Qing dynasty fell in the early 20th century. Concepts from the West brought the ideological emancipation of Chinese youth. In the 1920s, Chinese youth took off the Qing dynasty clothes with strict hierarchical norms and gender constraints, and put on progressive clothes representing patriotism, progress, democracy, and science. In the 1930s, the cheongsam was recognized as one of the traditional dresses by the government, and the improved cheongsam became the daily attire for girls, even as a school uniform. As for men's clothing, the design of the tunic suit, similar to a Western suit, implies the spiritual connotation of Chinese sense of propriety, justice, integrity, and honor, as well as Mr. Sun Yat-sen's concept of governing the state. At the time, the complex requirements such as shirts and ties were abandoned. Convenience, practicality, and cheapness made the Zhongshan suit a favorite choice for young men of the day. In the 1940s, looser sports uniforms appeared in Chinese schools, and students wore sportswear to participate in various campus activities. World War II was fanning the flames of war in China, and the patriotic youth put on military uniforms to join the fight. In 1949, the People's Republic of China was established. Chinese young men in the 1950s still kept their military uniforms and Zhongshan suits from the war. At the same time, under the influence of the Soviet Union, dresses decorated with small floral patterns were widely chosen by young Chinese women for the first time. A style of dress known as duacha, which is translated from Russian, was a fashionable item. In the 1960s, despite the worldwide recovery of the economy and the emergence of the hippie style, China still had lots of construction to be done. The Chinese people participated in the production and construction of a new China. The military uniforms, which were cheap and easy to unify, represented the Chinese people's revolutionary spirit of struggle, and it became the uniform standard for young people. In the 1970s, China entered an important era of improving production and construction. Intellectual youths were actively engaged in grassroots and participated in the construction of a new China. Subject to the production level and labor demands at that time, the durable dacron became an important clothing material, with the four colors of blue, grey, black, and white inherited from military uniforms. Simple, unified, and low-cost work clothes became the main trend. In 1978, China began reform and opening up. With the influx of Western trends and the continuous improvement of people's material living standards. In the 1980s, Chinese youth clothing was liberated from the single style and began to pursue changes in color and styles. Influenced by Western hippie style, patterned shirts, flared trousers, listening to radio, and dancing the disco became the brightest scene on the streets at the time. In the 1990s, Hong Kong movies became popular. In the Chinese mainland, there was also a surge in the admiration of Hong Kong stars, just as the United States admired Hollywood actresses in the 1950s. Young women became more confident. V-neck dresses with various patterns showed the graceful beauty of women. Men were influenced by Hong Kong gangster movies. Leather jackets and black pants were popular for men. In the 21st century, with the development of China's economy, the internet became popular, and the emphasis on individuality and freedom became the characteristics of the time. Under the influence of Japanese and Korean fashion, the combination of t-shirts with exaggerated patterns, striped sleeves and metal accessories on the clothes created a non-mainstream aesthetic with a strong sense of decadence, which became the most unique fashion for Chinese young people. Nowadays, China's national clothing industry has achieved a leap from wholesaler to retailer to brand owner. Internally, Chinese young people have their own iconic clothing in all walks of life. Externally, whether it is traditional clothing with Chinese characteristics or matching the trends of the times, Chinese youth are taking advantage of the trends of globalization to show the world their own interpretation of beauty, which has become an indispensable and important element in world fashion.